Welcome to Lightbulb Moments. Join us as we explore transformative experiences and insights in business and life. Here's your host, a maximizer and problem solver who, through his extensive skill set and network, builds long-lasting and meaningful relationships and continuously learns and applies new knowledge, Phil Fornaro.
All right, hello everyone. This is Phil Fornaro, and this is Lightbulb Moments. It's all about the energy, and we're here at the DoWire studio again after the great live event that we had a couple weeks ago, or 5 weeks ago, whatever it is. We're back here thanks to Alec Rodriguez and, of course, Nick Dubach, who has been on our podcast several times. So fortunately, we had this great thing happen. My production team of Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner agreed to come in and do a video with us. We've got 5 or 6 videos. Doug, if you heard before, he's from California, Santa Barbara. We went to visit him in San Francisco. You can go back to the podcast and listen to all about that. Talked about that quite frequently. Had a great time. Not to be undone, Doug said, hey, I'm coming to Chicago. So be very interesting to see how this works out, because we're starting to get more into video. Oh, and I forgot to mention Molly Lucas will now be part of our podcast team as that grows. You know, our team's getting bigger and bigger, running behind Val, and she's pushing them a lot to get things done. The podcast website up and running, Facebook group, all the great things that are happening. So I think the concept of our evolution of the podcast, it's so very perfect that we're going to be talking to a great podcaster in his own right, Doug Sandler, Nice Guys on Business. But more importantly, we're going to talk about how people that are starting out on the podcast and growing this, they're trying to figure out how to get their niche. And it's very hard to start these podcasts, but then as you grow and you go to someone like Doug and Turnkey Podcast, they help you learn how to become a great podcaster. And without somebody supporting you throughout the journey, you're not going to be successful. It's going to be very, very hard to be successful. So what I am so excited about is we're talking a lot about podcasts. We haven't had a podcast guest, and now we got one of the best in the world. So Doug, how are you today, man?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me. You won't see Strickland today. He's in the trunk of the car, right?
We left him as he should be.
As he should be. I think he likes it there. I throw snacks in every once in a while. He's good. He's good over there. Thanks for having me, Phil. And it's great to see the setup. It's great to obviously meet Val and the team, and it's really good to see you in person again. San Francisco was wonderful. We had a good chance to visit there and do some personal stuff. And now we're actually getting down to some business and podcasting, which is terrific.
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, at some point in time, we have to sort of take this and run with it. And it really helped the two interactions. And we always talk about having the interaction amongst in person rather than over Zoom or over a call.
Right.
And it's been great. Although I don't know if we showed you the greatest time. Most people take, when they come in from Chicago, we take into the city, right?
I did the tequila tour so far. That's all.
That's all you got.
I've been able to do. You said one thing in the intro, and I appreciate the kind words. You said one thing in the intro, which was really interesting. And now with technology, I know one of the things we're going to talk about today is technology and podcasting. It's easier than ever to start a podcast. It's harder than ever to be successful at podcasting. And so I think that what you have done is you've done the combination of you've embraced the technology, even though I know it was uncomfortable for you in the beginning, but you've really put yourself into a system. You've created this great system, and you're following the system, and you're doing it consistently. You're doing all the things that you need to do. I know I'm getting in deep already, and we'll get there, but starting a podcast is easier than ever. But doing what you do as consistently as you do it, you're getting the results, and that's really cool. Now we just have to reverse engineer. What's the plan? Like, where are we going from here now that you have this platform, that you have tens of thousands of people that listen to you every month, which is totally exciting. I'm really excited for you.
Yeah, well, it's now a team effort, and we're really sort of learning and how to grow it. And just imagine what we didn't have that same conversation a year ago as we had yesterday.
Gosh, yeah. Meeting too.
Yeah.
And then thank God the light appeared, and that light's name was Valerie. And she kind of calmed the whole situation down. She's like, this is Phil, because I thought I was doing something wrong in the beginning, and I don't know that I was doing anything wrong. I think it was just a matter of we just didn't understand the cadence. We hadn't gotten into the flow. So you were uncomfortable in the space. I was uncomfortable because you were uncomfortable, and it was really very interesting. And man, has that smoothed out. And you are like the star pupil in the process. And now the pupil becomes the teacher, which is terrific. I love to be able to share the gospel of what you've been doing recently.
No, that's great. And I appreciate that. So I think the cool thing in the light bulb moment, as you just said that, for me was I have all these concepts and ideologies on how, and I can
Mhm.
produce tons and tons of content very easily. But what you did for me is you simplified it and made it so that we had that next path forward. And
Great.
my whole life is finding those type of people. That's why our Bright community, I think they have to understand what you do and how Turnkey operates, and then we'll bounce back into your podcast.
You lead the ship here. I'll take it wherever you want to go.
Well, look, let's talk about 2015. You've been podcasting since 2015. I'm sure the landscape has changed.
Wow.
Let's talk a little bit about the evolution of podcasting, how it is, who's been successful, who is not, and then we'll get to the point of where we're at now.
All right, where do we start? Where do we start? At the very beginning?
The beginning,
All
yeah.
right, well,
Let's do it.
2014, I wrote a book called Nice Guys Finish First, and I wanted a platform to promote the book. I had no idea really what podcasting was all about. At that point, I think I had listened to Serial podcast, and that was the only one that I had listened to. And so there was a almost like this true crime, fictitious platform that was out there, and I'm trying to figure out how do I promote my book through this platform.
Oh,
So,
good. I thought we were going to talk about Wheaties or something. It was cereal with an S.
Yeah, Serial with an S. That's
Got
right.
it, got it.
Exactly. Sorry. I was listening to this podcast called Serial, and I thought this would be a really good platform for me to promote my newly released book or soon to release book. But I had no idea about the audio. I didn't know about how to create the sound, or video wasn't even in the equation at that point. It was all audio podcasts. So I went to a buddy of mine represented by the same agency in Washington, D.C. We were both entertainers. I was a DJ, and Strickland, who we mentioned, who's in the trunk of the car. I think I hear him banging now. He was a leader of a band, and we had been friends for 20 plus years at that point. And I thought, hey, what better a guy to ask how to put this together than a guy that's an audio engineer? So he helped me put together the beginning. And then I thought this would be great if he was a co-host of my show. And so we named this, we kept the branding, Nice Guys Finish First. We kept the branding, and we created a show called The Nice Guys on Business. And I think we had maybe 7 or 8 people listen to our first episode. And I thought that was horrible. And then we had maybe 14 listen to our next episode. And then we had probably 50 listen to our third or fourth episode. And by the time, we got a year into it, we had maybe 50,000 people that were listening on a monthly basis to our podcast. And it was crazy because our audience built relatively quickly. And that was really the beginning of the beginning of it. We started to focus on what our audience wanted as opposed to what we wanted to bring out to the world. When you listen to your market, that's when they respond really well.
Yeah.
So in a way, that was the beginnings of our show, The Nice Guys on Business. We're 10 years in, 1,650 plus episodes as of the recording of this. We've had about 6 million people that have listened to our show over the last 10 years. And it's created a revenue and income stream that I would never have been able to imagine, starting just by wanting to sell books through my podcast.
How'd the book sales go?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I think I might have sold a couple hundred books, but that is part and parcel of the idea of listening to your market. Our audience didn't want the book. What they actually wanted about 2 years into us doing this podcast is they wanted to hear more about how to podcast than how to, become a nice guy and generate more business from great customer service.
I
So
see.
I took my customer service strategies and I brought them to the podcast. Our audience didn't want to hear it. They wanted to hear more about podcasting. One guy in our audience, his name is Lou Diamond, reached out and said, hey, can you teach me how to do that podcast thing that you're doing? Help me put it together. Help me to do the production. And I said to Lou, I'd be happy to, but I don't even know how to charge you for it. What do I charge you? What would you pay? What would you be willing to pay? I think is what I said. And he'd say, I'd pay you $500 a month for 6 months. Just get me on the right track. So I thought, $3,000? That's awesome. I've made no money from this podcast so far, except for selling, maybe 100 books. So Amazon's dollars and cents to me were about $3.42 at that point.
Got it.
So
Not bad.
$3,000 into this, 2 years in, I'm like, okay. So we heard from another person in our audience, and then we heard from another, and then we really started to focus on this podcasting thing. The show has generated, I can't even tell you, millions of dollars of business. If the IRS is listening, it's only been hundreds of dollars, millions of dollars in business for our production company. And it's been just a great ride ever since.
Got it. Yeah. And hopefully, I don't think we have any IRS
That's
listeners.
okay. That's okay. And if we do, we do file our taxes and we do them on time. So it's all good. We take every deduction though, just so you know.
Well, of course.
Trips to Chicago,
That, of course. Yeah. The last night was incredible. We're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So what I want to try to figure out is that when I had JLD on,
Mhm.
John Lee Dumas,
Right.
and that was a shout out to Aaron for getting that one.
Great.
Aaron Walsh, she reached out and he said yes. We had that 15-minute episode with him. But I asked him that same question you know, is the market saturated for young podcasters? And I won't tell you what he said. What's your thought?
Well, we thought that 10 years ago. When we started our podcast, and JLD was even years before we started, and Pat Flynn, another icon in the world of podcasting, when we started our podcast, people were saying it was too late. And so, as people are starting podcasting now, and COVID was a huge time for people to start their podcast because everybody was locked inside. So people were starting podcasts. They kept thinking, well, is it a saturated market? It's not saturated because you're a unique individual. You have a unique personality. You provide a unique service. And whatever it is that service that you provide, that's going to be the first time, even if it's an identical service to somebody else out there selling the same widget, they're not you. So I always tell everybody, if you have a podcast message that's related to a business that you are having out there in the world, then absolutely get started podcasting. Keep in mind that it is not a zero sum game. By you having more audience members doesn't mean that I have less audience members.
Right.
So when you have a podcast that's successful, it's opening up the world's ears and eyes with video to podcast audiences. By me putting myself out there as a podcaster, even if I have a similar message, they're going to want to listen to your show and my show. So that's the benefit. So I don't really think it's ever too late. And I'm not saying that to be self-serving and to say, well, you should start a podcast and me as your production company. Look, AI generate, and I know we're going to talk about technology, but AI has generated so much more ease in getting started podcasting and producing your own episodes that even if you're not using a production company, you really still have an opportunity to do what you do and do it well and do it uniquely through bringing your message out to podcasting.
Yeah, and I agree and disagree in certain ways. The first thing I disagree with is break community. If you want to start a podcast, this is the source. I'm telling you. I mean, I couldn't do it on my own. It's because of the procedure, and it's because of the connection. It's because of the guests.
Well, I think, and let me just give you a yes and. Yes, and I think podcasting can be challenging in that it is so easy now to start. There's a low barrier of entry, but there is a high barrier for success because there is a strategy that's involved. Regardless of what your strategy is, if you want to build your influence, so you want to be a thought leader, or you want to build your community or educate a community, or if you just want to simply make money from your podcast, there's specific strategies that are involved in each one of those, let's say, three approaches to podcasting. Without the strategy, you're just a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. And there's even a term for it, and that term has been around for decades, but it's pod fade. Most
Ah,
podcasters, 90 some odd percent of podcasters that get started stop podcasting before their 12th episode. They're looking at their podcast and they're saying, why am I not been successful yet? And I keep thinking, you're 10 episodes in. What were you expecting?
right.
It took us 2 years, over 100 episodes before we made really our first dollar at podcasting. But once we understood how to grasp that dollar from podcasting, because look, I don't think money is a four-letter word. We were in it for the dollars and cents. We just were too stupid to stop before 2 years. And so we got to stay in this game because I know there's money in this. We just don't want to stop, 3 feet from gold. So we really did lean into it, understood what the strategy was that we needed to employ to make money from our show. And we've turned on the faucet since, that's almost 8 years ago or more than 8 years ago now. And it's been great. It's been a great revenue source.
Got it. Incidentally, JLD said the same thing
Oh, you
about
did?
podcasting. Yeah,
Okay.
it's almost identical
Well,
phraseology.
it's important to understand, when is the best time to plant a tree? Probably 20 years ago.
Yeah,
When's the second best time? Do it now. You do it
yeah.
now, just let it grow, and it will grow.
So tell me, when you talk to people, and I know we talked about the podcast that originally I think you thought I was crazy a little bit when you said, "What's your goal?" And I said,
I don't have
I
one.
don't have a goal."
Sometimes that's good and that's bad. It's good that you don't have a goal because you have no unrealistic expectation of where your podcast is heading. It's bad in that if you're not disciplined, you're going to lose sight of why you're doing this because you don't have a why. So for us, we just wanted to do it to promote the book. And then we said, well, this is good, but it could be better if we start to focus on, all right, how do we make money from this? And what business opportunities, what services do we want to provide? What are the deliverables? And you're right now in that really great spot in that you have tens of thousands of people that are listening to your podcast every month. And so now you have a reason why you need to stay in the game. Now we just figure out what deliverable, what service offering do you have that you could share. It doesn't mean that you have to charge for it. It could just be, I want to build a list. I want to build a list of 10,000 names so that at some point I can do something with them. It could be, I want to educate them. I want to teach them about investing. I want to teach them about nonprofits. I want to teach them about whatever it is that you want to share with your community. Until you turn them from anonymous to known, we really don't have a lot of control over the environment. So we encourage people that get started with podcasting, as soon as you're able to create a call to action so that you could convert those anonymous members of your audience to known members so that you can now do something with them.
Yeah, and it's that data that you don't think about, and you're
Right.
forming it. And here's the difference. I keep on going back to this: the difference of having somebody and doing it on your own. It's that sounding board and the evolution of what my questions were. And I sort of alluded to that yesterday.
Right.
We're sitting down. I have this like long list of questions, and I didn't prepare for the meeting. And as you spoke, and as we talked about how to grow the podcast, it sort of enumerated things. And of the 10 things that I wrote down, you had an excellent answer for each one.
Well, you had 10 things on your list, and I think when I left the conference room, you had 25 things on
Yeah.
your list that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. You carry this notebook around with you that you write, your notes about your podcast, and it probably is a discipline that you carry on to everything that you do. What's great about it is you absorb everything. You don't have an agenda that you're trying to get to. You're more of a sponge, and you want to understand and learn. And that's the greatest student of all. I'm a big fan of classic cars and classic trucks and things. And all I want to do is stand over the mechanic's shoulder and just watch what the mechanic is doing. Because for me to get into that engine, I'm fearful as hell to open up those valve covers and get into the pistons and rods and lifters and all of that stuff. But when a mechanic does it, and literally I'm just standing over his shoulder and looking down and looking what he's doing, all of a sudden it becomes much more clear. And I love having a coach in the mechanics world. And I'm assuming that that's kind of how you feel as a podcaster. It's like, well, I got this guy that I'm with that has done this. He's probably made many more mistakes than I'll ever make. Let me learn from his mistakes. And that's really what we encourage our clients to do.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, with such a low success ratio among
Yeah.
podcasters, why I have a business coach. Now I talked to someone on our podcast. Now we, maybe going to have a retirement coach. Why wouldn't I want to have a podcast coach? And that's how I view it.
I agree. And the other nice thing about that podcast guest seat, for sure, and you've seen this through some of the guests that I've recommended to you, and some of the guests, of course, that you and your team have gotten on your own, is that you have this opportunity to talk to these people that you would have had no business to be in front of without the podcast, and to be able to say to somebody that has been ultra successful, like I know you had Sean D. Nelson on your show from Lovesac, a $1 billion organization, and I've had some huge VIPs in my guest seat also. You're getting free coaching from these folks that can make 100 or 250 grand to do an hour-long keynote, and they're with you for 30 or 45 minutes having a conversation, and it's free, and they're loving being there with you.
So just so our audience knows, and this is why our break community, this is so powerful, is having Doug in the guest seat here. It's awesome that he's in my guest seat.
I love being here.
Can you name a couple that you
Sure.
that you worked with?
Most recently, let's see, we've had Jeffrey Gitomer, the king of sales, on our show. Ariana Huffington from Huffington Post. Grant Cardone, the 10X man from California, New Jersey, New York. Gary Vaynerchuk has been on the show. I'm sure JLD and Pat Flynn have been on the podcast. Phil Fornaro has been on our podcast in our guest seat. There's Sean Nelson also as well from Lovesac. We've had some huge, heavy-hitting VIP guests, but honestly, the best people to have on the show are the normal Joes like you and me, because they're the ones that are so relatable to the audience. I loved having Gary V on the show because it does create this huge ego stroke for your podcast. But the challenge is that, the stuff that Gary V is going through now is not as relatable to the stuff that the average person is going through now that my audience can relate to. Not being able to make payroll, or dealing with an HR issue, or building a system. I'm not saying that Gary V doesn't have those in his brain as the things that are important to him, but he's so far past having a payroll issue, or he's so far past his next hire that he's got people for that. The solopreneur that's struggling with paying their invoices from their contractors right now, I want to talk to a guest that's just been through that, because if
Ah.
I do that, that audience member is going to easily relate. Yeah, they're going to come for Gary Vee, but they're going to stay because of that normal person that's like you and me that has those everyday issues that we all have.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part of it. As we grow the audience, it's interesting of who picks up on what or where it's coming from or who relates to it. Because I was sort of joking on one of the podcasts that there's only a finite amount of light bulb moments.
I don't know that to be true, though.
Is
I
that
think I'm going to say there's an infinite amount of light bulb moments, or maybe there's a
interesting?
finite amount, but different views and different perspectives on how those light bulb moments are achieved.
So that's interesting. So the light bulb moment is that I may be wrong here. So that's the worst part about this, or the best part about this. So I'm trying to figure out then. To your point is that one person will say something. I think this is what you're saying, and it won't resonate with somebody.
I mean, don't we have this every day with our kids? I
Yeah.
mean, think about it. You talk to your kids, you want to teach them a valuable lesson, and you see it right in front of you, and you're saying, see that? That's why you can't do that, or that's why you need to be more consistent. And they don't hear it. But one of their best friends' moms or dads says the same thing to them, and your kids pick it up. And all of a sudden you're like, well, you can't say this to your kid because your kid won't hear it. It's like, I've been telling you that for the last 5 years. And your kid is like, I've never heard you say that in my life. And the parent of their friend says it one time, and all of a sudden it becomes the gospel. And that's so great. Do we care where the lessons are learned, or do we just want the lessons to be learned?
That's right.
And so your audience is feeling the same thing. The lesson that they're going to learn from me, even if I say the same thing, may not resonate with them if they're not relating to what I've gone through into their life. But somebody else that's sitting in that guest seat that says the same thing but just says it differently, they're going to hear it.
It's perfect. And
Right.
then I like the concept of them hearing it over and over again.
Well, think about your kids and again, I keep bringing up kids because I'm a parent of two kids that are now older, 29 and 32. And I think about how many times I read Goodnight Moon to my kids. And the next night you have this ton of, 30, 40, 50 books in front that you could read to them. And you say to them, which one do you want to hear? I want to hear Goodnight Moon again, Dad. I'm like, they want to hear it over again. They need to hear it again over and over. They relate to the characters. So it is very nice to be able to finally get through to an audience member that's been struggling with a problem. And you're not even realizing that you're doing it as the host of the show. All you're doing is just leading them to the teacher. The audience member has to hear it. And so you'll have a guest sitting in the guest seat sharing pretty much the same story of the problems that they had that the previous guest had, but then they'll have that aha moment, that light bulb moment in their life that is completely relatable to them because that guest shares a different version of the story.
Yeah, no, it's great. So we have this book list that's going on on our podcast so people can come and see who said what. Val, we're going to have to add Good Night Moon.
Add it. And then Valerie will send a message to the author letting them know, hey, we mentioned you on,
light bulb moment
on the show.
Hilarious. So I'll take a little break here. Alec, how we doing, my friend? All right. Yeah, I always check with Alec because you never know when we're not talking and you can be less kind to me, Alec, for sure. So it's funny, you came in from San Francisco and you end up in the radius of Chicago, but not in Chicago. And I know you've been to Chicago before, and instead of us taking you to a Linea or Gibson's or taking you to a stuffed pizza place in the city like Gino's East, Lou Malnati's, Pequod's, we take you to Melrose Park for dinner last night.
I'm a very simple guy. I live in a town that's got about 5,000 people. And even though I live in very close, within 90 minutes of Los Angeles, which in real people's terms, that means it's about 3 miles. I live about 90 minutes from Los Angeles and about an hour south of Santa Barbara in this small town called Ojai. I don't need a big city. I love just quaint little towns. Like LaGrange is great. Where we had dinner last night in this small little town with a lot of Latin influence.
Yeah.
I came to the town about an hour early because I was looking at the map and seeing the main street. And I just started walking into all the little shops. I love to go into the Mexican markets and sample their foods and just look at the spices on the shelf. I mean, that to me is better than looking at skyscrapers in a city. Not taking anything away from the grandeur that Chicago has to offer, but I feel like I fit better into a small town than I do into a big city.
Yeah, no, it was a good, and that's a great place. If our bright community hasn't been to Taverna and Melrose,
Great
it's
restaurant.
just a
Wow.
great restaurant. And your first experience with Melrose peppers, how'd you like them?
That was great. And it was stuffed with some sausage or
Uh-huh.
something like that. It was great. The bartender made a wonderful old fashioned. We had a great bottle of wine last night. I got to meet a number of people that I've seen before on your podcast and heard on your podcast. So it was really nice to meet your friends. I consider them my friends now. So I have to get their numbers from you so I can stay in contact with them. But
Well, that was our wise guy roundtable group.
I love it. I think right here in this studio. How did you get all of those people?
Oh no, we moved
Oh,
it over there.
That's right. You were over there. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, so the wise guy roundtable, that was supposed to be the debriefing, and how apropos. It's the third time I've said that this week, is that you were there because you were one of the people that called in, and you're our
Yeah.
production company
Yeah.
and all the other stuff.
Look, I really gravitate. You want to stay hot, get around the heat. That's truly how
Ah,
I feel about podcasting as well. You may feel like this is an information train that is leading from me to you, like you ask questions and I answer them as a strategist and coach in the world of podcasting. But I look at it, yes, that is something that we do. You ask questions, I answer the questions, I tell you the experiences that I've had. You learn from the experiences and you're able to capitalize on them. However, there is a lot of my motivation that comes from your inspiration. So when you're successful, I feel like, okay, let me look and see what Phil and Valerie and the team here in Chicago are doing. And let me see how I can duplicate that for other clients, not just other clients, but for our show as well. I'm always looking at what new ways can I put together my program so that we have more listeners and more viewers that are listening and seeing our show as well. So, I really do feel fortunate to be in the situation where, okay, being hired to do a job, but I feel like I love what's going on here because you've been ultra successful at it. I want to learn what you're doing.
ah, it's just talking to people.
I
I mean,
know but it's further than that. You talk to people, but you have such a passion for what you do, and it's easy. It comes across like if somebody sits down in my guest seat, I would challenge them to say something like, Doug doesn't have a good time with this. Well, you just listen to an episode of my show and it's easy to tell. I love this. 1,650 times I've done these episodes. I remember I wrote a blog for Huffington Post for 3 years. So it was 150 weeks. And every week
Whew.
on a Sunday night, when my blog came out on Monday morning, it was a grueling couple of hours to try to put those pieces, even just 400, 500, 600 words on a piece of paper. I was dreading those Monday mornings because Sunday night was coming and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm even going to write about.
That's
You
right.
just put a microphone in front of my face and say, go. I'm ready to go. And I feel like even 10 years into this, I have so much more to say and talk about, with the world.
Yeah, and it's that alignment concept, because I had the same issue. I have all this stuff in
I
my head.
know.
How do I get it out?
Well, most of the time in the very beginning, it's easy to find the content because you have all of this, you're verbally constipated. You haven't had an outlet for these words and the podcast hadn't been created yet. So you start to think about what am I going to talk about? And it's easy because you haven't said it. So all of a sudden, it's easy. Now you have an outlet.
Yeah.
About a year into it, when you're like, okay, well, what am I going to talk about next? I never have that year has not happened to me yet.
Yeah.
I have not yet run out of things I want to talk about.
Yeah, see, that's what's shocking. You think that you would at some point.
But you get some great guests that are sitting in front of you and you have these great conversations and then they lead to other ideas.
Yeah.
And then what's really cool about it is I talk about, the guest to gold strategy, and the guest to gold strategy for me as a podcast coach. And this is just one of many strategies in podcasting, but it's okay. Where am I able to capitalize on this relationship with my guest? And I'm not just talking about one way. Where are we able to capitalize, you and me as guest and host? And I think about, well, some of my guests become clients, and that's obvious. That's a direct source of business there. Some of my some of my guests become referral sources of clients, which again is great. It's a one-to-many model. Some of my guests become affiliates, meaning they have a product or service that they want to offer my community, and I don't have to have a deliverable. They have the deliverable,
Sure.
and I make a commission for that. So that's great. Some of my guests become joint venture partners. That is, we work on a program or something together where we promote it and then we introduce it to their community and my community. So again, this is just from the guest. And then that final category is that category that I love almost the most out of all of them. And it's, I don't really know where we're going to go from here, but man, I don't want this conversation to end. So we just have a follow up meeting just to discuss, hey, what's the next step for us? Let's figure out how we can do something together outside of podcasting. So commercial real estate investing has come up as a result of that. Investment opportunities for me, investment opportunities for my guest, business ventures that we've worked on together that I never thought would even materialize had that guest not sat in the guest seat. So if you're looking for opportunity, but you don't have a specific purpose for starting a podcast, just start it for the opportunity's sake.
That's right. So, Bright Community, I want you to rewind the last 2 minutes of what he just said, because the power of podcasting, it's not directly related to money. And
Right.
I think if I would have started this podcast thinking that my goal was to make money, I think this would have been a disaster, because that would have been my sole focus.
Right.
But all of the things, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be any goal that you have related to why you want to do the podcast. And you listed 5 or 6
Right.
that are probably more that are so powerful. So this is why. I mean, this is when people say they want to do it on their own. It doesn't connect in my head, and I don't think anybody that's been successful in this. I shouldn't say anybody, but it's really hard to find people that don't have somebody supporting them in that
Well,
regard.
in life as well. And it's not just podcasting, it's really everything related to life. I mean, what can you do and do well in a vacuum? You need people, you need a team, you need a cheerleader, you need an accountability partner, you need whatever you want to call it. You need a mastermind, you need a networking group, whatever it is. You need those guys like at the dinner table last night. Think about your life void that group that was at the table last night, plus the few that weren't able to make it.
Yep.
Think about how much more challenging life would be if you lead life in a vacuum and you think, I'm going to do this on my own. I have friends in my past, and they're still friends, but they are truly I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need a team. And it's so much more of a struggle. I'd much rather be going through the challenges and finding the wins with somebody rather than doing it solo.
Yeah. So I gotta pause for a second here. So this is your first experience at Do Wire Studio. How do you like it?
This is very cool. Not only is this building cool, but the studio itself. I've always set up my own microphone at my, I had somebody put a microphone in front of me. I had coffee that was delivered to me. I got tables. There's a carpet here. There's a big screen television set behind us. Are we going to do something with that at some point?
Yeah, of course.
You got to put your logo up on that screen.
Yeah, usually we do. We did it last couple of times, but we're gonna change that model a little bit. But yeah, it's gonna be good. Yeah, usually put Do Wire up there and LBM.
So what was really cool is that when we approached the door of the studio, you had your own key.
Yeah.
So I'm either thinking, okay, well, either Phil's a member here or he owns the building. Knowing Phil, he probably owns the building at this point.
I don't own the building, and my dear friend Nick trusts me enough to give me a key. So it's a great little place, and we're gonna sort of expand this to the community a little bit. I'm going to start promoting that for Nick, because a lot of people in the community, they don't have access to something like this.
This is great to be able to have access to a studio. If you are a plug and play kind of person and you just want to get the stuff done that you like doing and not deal with any of the extra stuff, coming to a studio like this makes life so much easier. I mean, you literally come in, you shake somebody's hand, they sit down at their computer, you sit in the chair. If your guest comes in, they sit in the chair. And you know something, even if you're just going to podcast on your own, still great. Sit in the chair, have a conversation, have your notes in front of you and do your thing and roll. And that is a really, really great way to get started. Now, if you're on a shoestring budget, it may not be the way you want to get started, but certainly this puts you in an environment where you're treating this as a business. And that's probably a healthy point to make. If you treat podcasting like a hobby, you're going to get hobby results. If you treat it like a business, like any other business, then you will get business results. You just have to have a purpose, a strategy, and a plan in place to make it happen.
Got it. Well, this is it's like
Full
very
circle.
very good alignment and synergy and a light bulb moment. So I was thinking about this. So we've been getting a lot of feedback, and I didn't tell you because I wanted to surprise you with this concept today. And we get feedback like Bill Carney's in the Adriatic texting me, saying, hey, I listened to a light bulb moment, this and that. And it's kind of cool. I'll get that type of feedback. Someone the other day challenged, the beginning of my podcast, whether it should be shorter or longer. And it's like, great. And that means they're listening and then they have advice. We talked to other people. Even my dad came out and he said, you know what, you talked a lot about problem solving, but what problems did they solve? It's like the general to the specific. So these are all great things. So what just gave us a sort of like some credibility here, even more so than we've developed over time, is two VC guys that are involved with growing businesses.
Right.
Two separate ones at two different times said, "This is very interesting to me. We wanna learn more about the platform."
Nice.
So, the concept isn't that my intent, but it's exciting. You know why it's exciting? Because exciting because you have the head start to all of this. So, I think as we cultivate how this works, I think that'll be the next step for a discussion to see how, VC, addresses that.
Well, look, if a VC wants to put a few $1 million into turnkey, we will be happy to listen. There's one thing that we really are challenged with, and I really appreciate you sharing that, because that, you think about if you think about, and you even rewind in your brain, or physically, if you're listening or watching this, rewind the video, is that you think about, if you keep in mind the word opportunity, it will find you. If you go at podcasting with a specific focus, I have to get there, and my only way there is a straight line, then could you get there? Sure, you could get there, maybe. But wouldn't it be great to understand that if you're looking for opportunity, and somebody could have heard that word VC and like, well, no, I don't want to get involved in venture capital because I don't want their money. I don't want to be beholden to anybody else. I hear that and I think, man, think of all the great things that we could do if we had a partner that was smarter than us
Yep.
at maybe not podcasting, but they understand how marketing works. They understand how the flow of money works. They understand how to get more eyeballs and earballs on podcasts and video. And so for me, I would love to have the ability to let someone else that knows more than I do about anything other than podcasting, let them help me build this business. I'd love it.
Yeah, not only it's very affirming for the industry in general, and it's very affirming because it's good that we're gonna learn from them. It's better that we can really project the message that we're trying to get to our
Agreed.
bright community.
Agreed. I want to go back to one thing that you had said, because I think it's important. Your dad had mentioned something about solving problems.
Yeah.
And when we had the conversation at the conference room yesterday at your office, you mentioned that somebody has an opinion about how you should do the show. And I love opinions. I remember that my brother, who is no longer with us, but my brother, really early on in my podcasting game, when I was just starting to do interviews, I think we started interviews around episode 50 or 55 or something like that of our show. Before it was just solo cast, me and Strick doing our thing. And I think he's still breathing in the trunk. I should check on him at some point.
I just keep on thinking of The Hangover. And,
Right.
And sorry, Strick, he jumped out naked and started running. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So I think about my brother. He had mentioned when I first started doing interviews, I was probably maybe about 20 or 30 interviews in, and he said, "Hey, can I offer you some advice?" And it was worthy of me listening, because my brother had been in broadcasting for 30 plus years, and he was a personality in Baltimore, where I'm from. And he said, I said, "Sure, I'd love to hear the advice." He said, "Well, you do these interviews on your show." I said, "Yeah, every other episode is an interview episode." He said, "Would you let the guest talk?" And I said, "Well, what am I doing?" Because didn't realize that, you're host of the show and you're just kind of leading your guest. So he said, "Well, you ask a question to your guest, and then you answer the question for your guest, and your guest is just kind of nodding, and but you never really give your guest a chance to really share what they want to share." And I said, "Okay, that's great advice." That being said, when your business partner or somebody you see at a networking meeting has advice for your show, and even your dad, I'm sure, who has amazing advice, there are so many ways that you can be successful at podcasting. And I think that where you really excel is when you bring your personality and style, and what you want to bring is your agenda to podcasting. Whether your intro is 20 minutes long or 30 seconds long or no intro at all, you're just say, "Okay, here's John Smith, let's talk." Regardless, your audience knows you. They come because they fall in love with you, and they're going to stay with your show. You just keep doing what you do.
Got it.
Just keep doing it. And if you feel like it doesn't fit right for you because you're forcing a short intro or you're forcing a long intro, then, when somebody gets started podcasting, many times they will ask a question. I think you asked this question in the beginning. You said, "Well, how long should my episodes be?"
Yeah,
Remember,
I did.
you were focused on the length of the podcast as a starting point for what do I do? How many minutes should my podcast be? Well, what do you tend to listen to as a listener is my first response. If you like 10, 20-minute episodes, then maybe that's what you're going to fall into. If you like 90-minute or 2 hour or 3 hour Joe Rogan style episodes, then great. Your audience will get used to whatever it is. And if they aren't getting used to it, then they're not your audience and you don't need them as listening to your show.
That's right. Then they don't relate to
Right.
it. Yeah, that's really good advice for all podcasters.
Yeah, your guy that gave you the advice at your episode intros, and no offense to that guy, I think his comment is valid.
Yeah.
Maybe he is not an audience member of yours if he wants to hear less of you and more of your guest. My feeling is you do you and let everybody else fall in line.
And that is a key light bulb moment for our bright community, because it's when we talked earlier about that flow of thought, that it was hard for you to write for blogs,
Right, right.
and then it was okay now to sort of unleash it through the podcast medium. I think once you find that, whatever that is, and that ends up being for both of us something that
Yeah.
fulfills us at a high level, I think that it's hard for people to find that.
Yeah, you need to give yourself some latitude. You have to give yourself some space. Having a microphone shoved in front of your face and lights and a camera and a production person watching and, all of that, that can be intimidating. And at some point, all of those things. Now, I don't know how you feel about it, but when I first walked into the studio, when I sat in a seat and had a microphone in my face and had lights turned on, you get that moment of you get that a little bit of fear. And then once you get in the flow of the conversation,
Yeah.
I don't see the microphone. I feel like, Strick and I have been having the same conversation for the last, 10 years on the show. Fridays come, we record on Thursday for our Friday episodes, and Thursdays come for the recording. Once that microphone turns on, I don't even see it anymore. We talk about everything. I talk about my 2 ex-wives. I talk about my kids. I talk about the financial woes that we went through early on. We talk about, our wonderful clients and our not so wonderful clients, which we don't mention the not so wonderful clients by name, but we talk about, our world would be so much greater if it wasn't for our staff and our clients,
Yeah.
but that's what is the lifeblood of our business. So for us, we talk about everything and the microphone disappears. That's so much what I love about podcasting is it's just a continuing conversation that with a different person sitting across the table from you, and it is fulfilling for me.
Yeah, learning, fulfilling, etc. So now I'm looking at the microphone now.
Now you're a little self-conscious.
Thanks a lot, man.
Let me ask you. Can I ask you a question though?
Of course.
If I were to ask you, what's the best thing that you have gotten out of podcasting? Would you be able to come up with an answer that would feel comfortable for you?
Yes, there's two things. The best thing for me is I feel inspired. I feel happy. I get to connect with people. It's actually, if people laugh at me when I'm at, events where I should be selling Fornaro Law, but my first thing out of
the podcast.
the podcast, which is all relatable because
Right.
it helps people understand
Right.
me, and then they get intrigued, and then they try to reflect, and it takes conversations in a different direction.
They don't even realize when they're talking to you who you are. I mean, not in a bad way, in a great way. I mean, when somebody has a conversation with you at a networking meeting, they don't realize how many tens of thousands of people that listen to your show. That's the greatest thing about it. It's kind of like, I'll make an old school comparison. Could you imagine Johnny Carson going to a networking meeting and just starting to have a conversation with somebody and somebody doesn't realize they're talking to Johnny Carson?
Right.
When you go to a networking meeting, a law networking meeting, or a financial advice or an estate planning meeting or whatever, somebody's having a conversation with you, they have no idea because our world of podcasting, it's so in the background. Nobody realizes, unless they're listening to your show, they have no idea who you actually are. And I love that. That's just my perspective.
Yeah, and it's cool too, and it's the conduit of teaching. And so what I usually do after I have a meeting with somebody, it may go one way,
Yeah,
they may want me to invest in their business, or they need help with legal work. I will typically send an email to them. Doesn't have to be my podcast, but relatable podcasts that talked about our conversation. It was sort of like a follow-up. And it allows this evolution of relationships that otherwise would have gone south. And not that it will go south, it just wouldn't have evolved.
Wouldn't have evolved.
Yeah, so then they see it, they hear a podcast, maybe it's relatable to them, and oftentimes they just go, "When can I be on?" You know?
Agreed, agreed. And now that is the answer that I was kind of listening out for. Okay, what's the other thing that you've gotten from podcasting? And for me, and it sounds like for you as well, the hidden gift of podcasting is the relationships that you build from the podcast.
No
Whether
question.
it's somebody in your audience that's listening or somebody that's sitting in the guest seat or somebody that you're working with. For me, hands down, the biggest benefit to podcasting for me as a person is the person sitting that I'm having a conversation with. It's really hard to do that when you're doing just solo casts
Yeah.
because you're waiting for an audience member to reach out through a call to action that you may create to make themselves known. It's so much easier. Let's bypass all that BS and let's get right to the relationship.
And that's right. I didn't even realize, of course, the light bulb. I didn't realize that is let's just get to the relationship.
Yeah.
Forget all this dancing.
Right. Let's get to the relationship. So you go to a networking meeting and that maybe the focus initially was for you to invest in a business or talk about law, but really you're not there to sell that. What you really people aren't buying your legal services. People are buying the relationship with you. And I'm not saying buying. They have to first like you as a person before they invest in you as a business.
That's right.
So let's start with the relationship. Let's do this. Hey, look, I know we're going to talk about law and we can do all that later, but hey, you have an intriguing message. Let's flip it around. You have an intriguing message. Can we share your message with my audience? They'd love to hear it. Then they start asking you, well, how do we do that? Well, I have this podcast. It's called Light Bulb Moments. Isn't it the greatest conversation opener ever in the world is to be able
Ever.
to say, I have a podcast?
Ever. Yeah. Yeah, because it really is because everybody's immediately intrigued. And I didn't know about podcasting before this. I didn't listen to a bunch. I think yours was my first one that I listened to. And the philosophy is that it binds people together. And that's it. I think we came to the same point.
And it doesn't matter whether you have uh, 20 listeners or 20,000 listeners. Your guest really doesn't care. I mean, they may say that they want to know about your numbers, but that's because that's what the industry has told them to ask. Well, you want to be a guest on Phil's podcast? Well, ask him how many listeners he has. Maybe that's the starting point. Well, why does that matter? Because if today you have 2 listeners listening to your show and you're a brand new podcaster, do you realize that in 2 years, your inventory of that time when you had the 2 listeners is still going to be on Apple Podcasts. So
Yeah.
your 20,000 that are listening now are all going to go back. If they want to hear the original Phil, they're going to listen to episode 1 or 2 of Light Bulb Moments.
Yep.
When you had 7 people listen to your show or 2 people listen to your show, I really do emphasize with people, you're not coming to podcasting with a Joe Rogan or Tony Robbins or Tim Ferriss community already built of millions. So you have to build your community right here. And I'd rather have 20 people taking action than 20 million people listening that are doing nothing. We're not in this world to sell. You and I are not in podcasting to sell advertising space. Now, maybe it'll happen. And I know you're working on sponsorship deals, and I think that that's great. I think that's the evolution of a show that has gotten to a point where you have gotten, tens of thousands of listeners. Now we can go out and sell that space because there's value in it. But when you have 7 people listening to your show, nobody is going to buy sponsorship from you, and that's okay. We're not really looking for it. So as you evolve, that stuff comes into play. But initially, who cares how many people you have listening to your show, because you're really in it. So you're learning and you're getting your podcasting chops. And eventually a year where you are now, and then 2 years, and then 5 years down the road, when you have 100,000 people, as opposed to having 20,000 people, you're going to say, okay, this is cool. Now, how can I capitalize on that part of the podcast? We don't have to push this yet.
Yeah.
And
Patience.
patience is everything.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, stay with the value. And the value is really where we just stated a moment ago. It's in the relationship that you're going to build.
Yeah. So that's funny. Well, I want to get to the patience because that's a real important feature. I look at the advertisement the other way. So now, in terms of why I want advertisement, it's because the people that I care about that listen, support me throughout this, they can benefit as a result of it.
They totally now. Don't you feel like now you have a value that you can provide back to them?
That's right.
And there's got to be some energetic exchange. That exchange is their buy-in. Their money creates that advertising that you can share on your show that will now benefit their business as much. And it benefits your audience too, because now you have a significant audience. it is a circle that in the beginning, when we feel like a guest sits in this guest seat, we feel like they are doing us a favor by sitting in this guest seat. Remember those first handful
Yeah.
of guests? You're like, please come sit on,
Yeah.
please be a guest on my podcast. This will be the greatest thing ever. I need your help.
Yeah.
You own a media company. I shared this with you yesterday. You
Yeah.
own a media company. The benefit of owning the media company is that you're in charge. You are the one providing benefit to your guest, even when you only have a few people listening to your show. Because again, that inventory stays on Apple Podcasts so that in a year from now, when you have 20 or 25,000 or 100,000 people listening to your show, they're still going to go back and listen to your episodes. It's the same thing like, well, what day should my episode air? Can I air it on a Saturday? Do I have to air it on a Tuesday? Well, what does it matter? If podcasting is on demand, people will listen when they want to listen. I don't have to listen on a Saturday, even if the episode comes out on Saturday. If it's a live episode and never to be heard again, yeah, maybe that matters. But it's on demand. You can listen anytime you want.
Yeah, it's shocking. I always assumed as a podcaster that it would be the episode that comes out that drives the downloads.
But what have you seen though? It's not that way at all.
It triggers when we have that consistency. It triggers something, and people that like one episode, maybe they'll listen to that, but they're not. They're going into all different areas.
Well,
It's
you'll
crazy.
get the days that your episode airs, you'll get a spike in your listenership, but your spike is not just for the episode that just came out. It's actually for a lot of your past episodes.
It is.
And it's one of those things that I can't put my finger on why that's the case, but that's just the reality of it.
I mean, maybe that's what I got to figure out. Maybe I got to, Aaron Walls had this idea a while back, getting someone that understands the psychology. Aaron, I know you're busy at law school, but fire it up. Let's get
psychology of podcast listenership.
I'm writing that one down.
Well, and if you look at, YouTube has some better analytics than Apple Podcasts. Apple is and Spotify are very, very tight with what they will show you.
Yep.
But you look at any YouTube video, even as a viewer watching a video, you can see on the timeline where the spike in where, if it's a how-to video, you see like a guy putting in a transmission, you see everybody advanced the timeline to where the transmission is actually being installed. We can't do that with Apple and Spotify, but if you have it on YouTube, you know where your key listening is. But that's just for the episode. That's not for, well, why are they listening to back episodes right now, the day that the episode airs? It could just be that there is I think I may have just come up with a reason. When I go and I listen on Spotify and I see, let's say I listen to The Daily and to some of the other New York Times audio. When I go into my feed on Spotify and I listen to The Daily, the oldest unlistened to episode is the first one that comes up.
Oh.
So maybe for me, if I have 100 episodes that are in my queue, but I've listened to 90 of the 100, maybe that 10th one from the most current one is the one that pops up first. So that's the one that I'm listening to, or at least I'm advancing to the one I want to hear that's the most recent. I don't know, but maybe I don't know. We have a podcast professional in the room. Is that what's going on? I have no idea. I don't know. Oh, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out because now we'll think about it. And I think that's what we have to sort of understand if you're going to expand the process.
I think I just geeked out on like the analytics there for a moment. Sorry if we lost anybody in our listening audience or viewing audience on that one. Sorry.
No, but it's true. I mean, they're targeting you. They got targeted ads that come to you all the time. That there's got to be some sort of a algorithm that sort of develops this, but we'll figure that out.
That's all that technology stuff and AI, man. Oh man. I know one of the things on your agenda was how does technology fit into this game and how much easier does it make podcasting? And oh my gosh, is podcasting so much more the barrier of entry, the barrier of creating episodes and doing stuff with the collateral that you get from promoting the episodes. It has become so super easy nowadays.
So let's switch to that because now there is an evolution of podcasting. I'd be anxious to hear what you think podcasting will look like in 2-3 years from now. Will it change? Will it be something else? Or is AI? I mean, I heard there was a podcast with two AI people talking, and it was the likeness of one of them. And
Right,
I go,
right.
what the heck is going on here? I mean, what do you think's going to happen?
It's kind of like, you don't like the weather in Florida, just wait a minute.
Yes, we have
It's
that
kinda
Chicago
yeah,
one too. Yeah,
right, same way in Chicago. It's
yeah.
different in Ojai, California. It's always
Oh,
the 10.5 months to get your content on, but it does come down to still understanding why you're starting a podcast to begin with, and how do we get you there? Just because it's easy doesn't mean that it's good. It can be easier to do stuff with your, short form video content. I mean, how huge is that right now? 2 years ago, that was a non-starter. It was too difficult. You needed a video editor, and then you needed software, and it didn't communicate with the video, with the, I don't even know the platforms that are out there. But short form video content is huge right now. Audio content, it's still the name of the game when it comes to podcasting, but YouTube and long form video content is big as well.
hmm.
So how do we know which direction we go in? Social media promotion, TikTok and Instagram and X and LinkedIn Live and all of the, Facebook Live was the game a handful of years ago. And now I don't hear two people talking about it at all.
Yeah, and I wonder how what the shift is. And you see, Google, changing how they
Right.
deal with things and
Right.
having immediately now no one even looks at the 10,
Right.
the
Right.
sponsored ads.
Right.
They're looking at
The-
what the AI
what
has.
AI says, exactly.
And then going into OpenAI or ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, I find myself going there for the same type of thing. So
I do the same thing as well. It has become a game of, I have a guest that's about to sit in the guest seat, and it used to be that I spent an hour. I went to their website, I did a little research, I went to LinkedIn, I looked up their book on Amazon if they had a book. I put all that information together. I wrote an intro, I wrote some talking points and then questions, and then I created some promotional links for them to go in the show notes. Now I go to ChatGPT 5 minutes before the interview. I load in their URL for their website and maybe even their LinkedIn. And I say, give me a humorous intro for this guest that's going to come on the Nice Guys on Business. And, the nice thing about it is, because I've been doing that now for the last year, ChatGPT knows my language.
yeah,
And so it writes a perfect intro for me that I might doctor a little bit from there, but it's taken an hour long prep session for me, and it's created literally in 5 minutes before the guest sits in the guest seat. I could just show up and do that, and there have been times where I've done that, but it still doesn't handle the conversation.
no,
I still have to, yeah. So I want to intro the guest, but then I want to have a real conversation. So I might have a starting talking point. So technology has really, really made the interview process super simple for me. And I still feel like I know the guests and I can have a good conversation with the guests.
yeah, just having those. Because I like to do that too. I like everything to be sort of authentic on the podcast because I don't know where it's going to go, which is sort of
Is
odd.
is your chat GPT called Val GPT? 100% no. I feel like it may be.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering what our Chat GPT looks like because yeah, Val's always on it for sure. That's hilarious. So before we go on, how did you like your beef sandwich?
Oh my gosh, it was so great. I don't remember the name of the place.
It was Buona beef.
Buona Beef.
Yeah,
So I came to Chicago. I was a fan of The Bear.
yeah.
I watched the show, and I'm like, what is this beef that they're talking about here in Chicago? So I literally pulled up to the restaurant, which had a drive-through. So that was the first sign that probably this isn't necessarily the place, but it is a faster place, and it's cool. And I said to the guy that said, welcome to Buona Beef. How can I help you? And I said, I've never been here. I've been to Chicago once, and I thought it was deep dish pizza was the thing. So what do I need to know about Buono beef? And you just take care of my order. So he
Yes.
said, well, do you want? And then I said, I don't want to know what I'm getting. You just tell me I want the beef.
Yeah.
And so he just gave me something with sweet
Sweet
peppers
peppers, yeah.
and onions and beef on a
Oh,
roll. And it was the au jus, and it was all
uh-huh.
all the good stuff. Because do you want fries? And I'm like, no, I don't want the fries. I just want the beef. Just
But
give me that.
and it was outstanding.
It was really good.
So that's funny. Yeah. So we've got some of the best beef places around. Portillo's has always been good, although that's becoming private equity. We got private equity bought it up, so it's getting a little odd. But
Tell me about I want to know more about this private equity thing. Tell me more about this. I don't really know how. I mean, I know in San Francisco we started talking about finance and thing. And a lot of what you said landed, but there was some of what you said that I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So there was the credit thing, there was the private equity thing. I'm like, how does private equity help a business?
So and here's the big rub, private equity, if you invest in private equity, you're gonna, get solid returns on these alternative investments.
Right.
The problem with private equity, it goes into businesses that are profitable and tries to make it even more profitable. I mean, if you've seen Wall Street,
Right. Of course.
that's
Right.
that's sort of the concept of breaking up.
Greed is good.
Yeah.
Okay, Gordon Gecko, let's talk more.
That's right. So that's the concept. It's not exactly the same, but it's that concept of taking a business and then making it so that investors like it. And if it's breaking apart the business in many parts,
Right.
whether it's growing. I mean, private equity in hospitals now is becoming a problem because they're worried about the bottom line and less about the
Right.
health.
Right.
So private equity is this necessary evil. But now in the world of finance, the public market has less companies than the private market. So the private market defines how our businesses grow
Okay.
in society. So
All right.
so
So there's an advance. There's a primer lesson in private equity.
yeah, we can get deeper in that, but that maybe it's for a different show. So the interesting thing is Portillo's, which is a household name, Dick Portillo, icon in our community as it relates to grit. In 1970s, he made this little hot dog stand.
Yeah.
He had like $1,200 or $1,000 or something, and he made it something special so everyone would go and have the beef sandwiches. And private equity came, they expanded it nationwide, and now they're starting to struggle. Their stock from their IPO has dropped.
Wow.
I
Okay.
think now it's at around $6, $7 or something, and I think it started off at 80 or something like
So
that.
it sounds like in that particular case, private equity can take you so far, but then the public needs to take you the rest of the way. They need to buy into the product.
Well, yeah, that's
It was too diluted, it sounds like.
yeah, they diluted it. They made the process bigger. The quality wasn't as good. You can tell the
Oh, you get
difference.
away from quality.
Yep.
That's not good, especially in the restaurant business.
But now I heard the other day that Marco's pizza guy that made Marco's, a household name, and maybe not that much because you didn't look like it reflected in you. Marco's Pizza, that guy that turned Marco's around is just joining the Portillo's group. So anyway, and we won't give any investment advice, but they're starting to change their model. I've been watching it because it's very household. But some of the best in Elmwood Park, Johnny's Beef, right up the street from Buona. I wish I would have known is Little Joe's, LaGrange icon and wonderful beefs.
Well, I got up at 2:30 in the morning to make it to LAX by 5:30 to get on my 6:10 flight here to Chicago, and it was too early for me to eat before I got on the plane. So as soon as I got off the plane, I waited in an hour-long line. Thanks, Budget Rental Cars for that one. I
Never
waited
budget,
in an
never
hour
budget.
rental car line, and I was driving this way towards your office in LaGrange, and I hadn't eaten yet today. I had a coffee, but that was about it. And I thought, what do I want to have I just have to have a quick snack before I go over to Phil's office. And thought, well, let's try beef. Let's make that
Smart.
Let's make that happen.
And next time, call me and we'll have a nice spread for you. We'll get you all different options.
Well, you guys have rolled out the red carpet for me since I've been here, and I felt like I can't impose. This is going to be a last minute imposition, and I know you've got Val going a million miles an hour, and for me to ask for one more thing put on your schedule, Val, I didn't want to do it.
Well, now you're being selfish because if I could have had Italian beef with you, that would have been ideal.
All right, now I know. Now I know. Anytime that's food or tequila related, I know I should start right with you.
Bingo. Now you got it. Stop concerning yourself.
Well,
think about others.
Thanks so much for including me last night in the dinner. I really had no plans last night, and to go to that, not only just to have some camaraderie and friendship, but to have a wonderful meal in the process too, and authentic Italian meal like we had, and great conversation. That was wonderful. So thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Enjoy that. All right, before we go into the rep, I do want a bright community to sort of understand your process, not your proprietary process.
I'm an open book. I'll tell you anything, even about my proprietary process. I don't even know what that is, but I'll tell anything. I'll say anything.
I just want people to understand is that if this is something that speaks to them, and I'm glad because, like I said at the beginning, we haven't had someone that talks about podcasting, and obviously we got a lesson today. Our bright community had a wonderful lesson on how podcasting works, why it's beneficial, to them and others. What is someone? I'm going to start a podcast today. I'm going to go ahead and I have this idea. Take me through. It doesn't have to be long. What do you do?
So the first thing I do when I have that initial meeting with them, and we came up with this really simple acronym, you got to get to know your mom. Your
Oh.
market, your offer, and your
Oh,
message.
that's right. I remember this.
Right? We had
Seems
this
like so
conversation
long ago. That's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
when you first get started in podcasting, the people that are the fastest or the most successful, the fastest, are ones that understand who their market is. Do they have a specific offer? And do they understand their branding or their messaging? So that's the market, offer, message. Those that come to podcasting without one of those three, at some point we're going to have to figure out, well, who do you want to talk to? Do you have a specific offer, and how do you want to word this, or how do you want to message this message that you have to bring out to the world? You come to us with none of them, we at least have to work out one of them to put our stake in the ground. Once you get to know one, then we start to get to know another. We start to come up with an offer. Someone that has knows exactly who's in their market and has really in touch with their messaging, but don't have an offer. Well, you'll never be able to sell something if you don't have an offer. If you have a specific offer, but you know your brand, but you don't have a market, well, we need to make a market. And if you have a market and you have a service that you want to deliver, but you don't understand your messaging, or you don't really know the cadence of how you're going to bring this out to the world, then we have to understand and get to know what your message is. So the key to success in podcasting is putting those three things together. It doesn't have to come fast, but it has to come at some point so that you can be successful at it.
Got it. And then overlying or overlaying the concept of technology, all the little things that you do with every time. I mean, like there was like 10 things that you have
Well, yeah,
technology
but that's
wise.
all the mechanics. So
Yeah.
now, so once people start in the wrong area. I was a DJ for 30 years, 37 years actually, before I came into the podcasting space. And I would go to these DJ conferences in Atlantic City, which is one of the bigger ones, and then they have another one in Vegas. And the guys and girls that were DJs would spend all of their time in the trade show on the trade show floor. They were trying to figure out what subwoofers that you would have and what kind of computer systems that you would put together and all of that.
Ah,
They wouldn't spend any time focused on, how do I get customers?
mm,
And then how do I talk to my customers? When somebody would say to me as a DJ, not a customer, but somebody else that was a DJ would say to me, well, how many songs are in your database? I have a database of, 60,000 songs. And I would say, well, let's see, I got 4 hours of an event. I have about 3 minutes a song. So let's say in the 4 hours of the event, I'm playing maybe 2.5 hours of dance music, because you got a meal and you have all the other stuff that's going on. So 2.5 hours of dance music, I could play 20 songs an hour. So let's just say I need 60 songs.
yeah.
I said, I don't know how many songs are in my database, but I know I have 60, and I know I'll get people on the dance floor from those 60.
Yeah.
So for me, it was all about knowing the right things, knowing how to deal with my customers on the phone, how to communicate with them effectively, how to find my customers, because I'm not focused on subwoofers and database and computers. Yes, given you must have a database that's got enough songs to make a fickle crowd happy, and you have to have sound so that it's quality when it comes out of your speakers, and you have to have the right speakers. But that's not where I want to start.
Yeah.
In podcasting, yeah, you could focus on, what microphone am I going to get, and what preamp do I need, and do I need what kind of lighting do I have to have, and how many gigahertz, and how fast does my internet connection need to be, and what recording software am I using, and what editing software am I using? All of that stuff is important at some point. But to get started, let's talk about the things that are really important. Why are you even getting into podcasting to begin with, other than, well, I think it would be cool to have a podcast? Well, at some point, that's going to wear thin
Mhm.
because you have no results. And so we need to focus at some point on, okay, let's get to know your market, your offer, and your message. And then we can get to, oh, what kind of microphone do I need to have? Do I want a plug and play microphone as opposed to an XLR microphone? Do I need a, recording software that is the level 10, or do I need recording software like Zoom so that I can just get a message out to the world? I don't want to complicate it too much for people when they get started. So we really do try to make it pretty simple. Tell me your market. Let's talk about your offer, and let's understand what your messaging is going to be all about. And then let's work through Zoom preferences, and let's work through recording software, and let's work through microphones and all of that other stuff. I know that was a long answer to a fairly simple question, but that's kind of where it is.
No, and it's valuable to our bright community because it's even if they're not a podcaster, they still got that great ability to keep it tight at the beginning, figure out what you're doing,
Well,
do
think
the
about
mom and move forward.
how many
Yeah.
people have said to me through the years, I've always wanted to start a podcast. Oh, and what held you back? Oh, God, so much technology, or I don't have time in my schedule, or, I don't really know what I would talk about, or I don't really think I have the personality to put together, an entertaining episode or interview. Like, okay, well, we can work all that stuff out. Let's work on why would you even want to start a podcast to begin with? Because we got to get you past episode 12. Pod fade is a real thing.
Got it. All right. And yeah, the other day you told me I had to get up once you get to 100, that was that was the key. I go, wait, when does this stop?
You're talking about your reviews or your episode count?
Episodes. Yeah.
Okay, so
reviews are getting there.
yeah, so you want to get as quickly as possible. You get those 100 episodes under your belt so that you can have some of those bruises and battle wounds that you need to have in order to be able to claim some level of success. And then once you start to understand the importance of ratings and reviews for Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you understand that your audience will grow organically when you're a little bit more caught up in the Apple Podcast algorithm. We want to get more organic eyes on your podcast. Once you lay off the dollars that people spend oftentimes in advertising their podcast through LinkedIn and Facebook and all of that, once you lay off the ad spend to try to promote people to come to your podcast, those listeners, they don't stay with you because you bought those listeners basically.
Yeah.
So it's much better to have an organic growth than a paid growth, because organic growth is ultimately what you're looking for as a podcaster.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And that patience of it we talked about earlier, just keep it nice and tight. When it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and just give it your all and then see what happens.
100%. And you're doing all of the right things. I love the example that you're laying out.
Thank you, my friend. All right. Anything else we could add to our Bright community?
No, this is great. I love that you named your community. We have the same. We have our nice guy community. We call our hardcore fans our Funkin' fans. So if you at some point have that core community that you hear from on a regular basis, and I think yesterday we were talking about trying to get some voicemails and messages coming into your we'll figure out that part, but it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really sort of excited about all the things we talked about, because now my mind is exploding.
Tons of success to you, Phil, and your entire team here in LaGrange. And I know that you're going to continue this podcasting journey and be ultra successful. And I'm just happy to be along for it. I'm holding on to this train that's moving fast. As a matter of fact, there's a train.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it helped me to get here on time. Yeah,
that was great to hear the train go by.
Yeah. No, it's funny. Yeah, we always have it coming in. We're trying to fit it into the show when it's really loud.
The whistle.
So here's my biggest challenge of all. I want to ask you, Val refuses to come on the podcast. Do you have any words of wisdom?
One day.
One day.
Well, you just got to, first of all, you got to, my dad, who was a legendary sales trainer, he used to talk about the bird cage. And the bird cage is, if you ever want a bird, you just put up a bird cage in your house, and that bird cage will represent that you want a bird. And eventually somebody's going to put that bird in the bird cage for you.
Got it.
If you just attach a microphone to Val's desk, don't have anything connected to it yet, but just attach the microphone. I'm looking at Val. She's like, yeah, she's giving us thumbs down. Bad idea. But if you want her to be on the show, got to put a microphone on her desk. Eventually it'll move closer and closer to her, or it'll become like a pencil cup.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. But the problem is that I have to figure out how to order the microphone.
Yeah, there you go. Well, because she'd have to order it for you.
I'm useless now in that regard. So, all right. So anything else? I mean, how do people connect with you, and for Nice Guys and for Turnkey, of course?
Well, if you go to Apple Podcasts, the Nice Guys on Business is the name of our show. If you like our show, you'll like us, because you basically see us on the show, or hear us on the show. If anybody out there in your audience at all has any interest in just discovering what podcasting can do for them, best place to go is just turnkeypodcast.com/toolkit. And you'll get a few different things, including 5 ways to make money podcasting and some other tools that they'll be able to get.
Cool. We'll put it in the show notes, of course. A Turnkey will help me with that.
I think will I get an email from this episode, Val, that says you were mentioned in no, I won't because I'm on it. So I won't get one on this one. Valerie does a great job with that.
Oh, that was the best thing we ever did, I think.
I agree.
Well, speaking of tools, I just looked at the LinkedIn before I came in because I wanted to check one thing, and I realized it never connected with you until
Oh,
today.
we're not connected today? Wow.
Well, you're
Okay.
following me. I think I followed you, but for some reason it didn't connect. It was
Maybe sometimes when I go to LinkedIn, it doesn't let me make a connection. It only says, "Would you like to follow?" And I always think that the person that's asking to be followed as opposed to connected with
yes,
is a
sales.
little too popular for me. So,
Yeah.
so maybe that's what it is.
Well, there's a three. I just learned it. There's a three dot. Not just about a month and a half ago. There's three dots to the
Okay.
right of the follow, and if you go down, you can connect.
I see. I've learned something new today. I don't follow. I can connect just by going to the three dots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good to
Because
know.
oftentimes you get that if you follow somebody you don't know, you get like an immediate message saying, "Hey, you want to buy my product."
See that? That's the 60-year-old learning from the youth of today.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm going to wrap if that's all right.
Yeah,
All
just
right.
do it.
All right. Well, there you have it, Bright Community. You saw my mentor in the space. You learned about podcasting. You learned out a little bit of both of our journeys. Listen to nice guys on business. It's very, very informative. It's like light bulb moments on steroids as it relates to entrepreneurs. We're going to get to that point at some point. And if you want to start a podcast, it's just, Doug's a phone call away. So if we heard a couple light bulb moments, there's so many. I'm just going to name a few. Listen to your market, follow your market, follow your customers, critical to everything in business. Be open-minded. Always try to figure out what is going to get you to the next level. Don't shut it out. Don't be closed-minded. That's a sure sign that you're not interested in learning, not interested in growing. You want to stay in your little shell. Don't do that. Always find someone smarter than you. It's really critical. If you don't find that person, you can't grow either. Listen to advice and feedback. Some is going to be good. Some is going to be bad. Don't think about it that way. Think about it. Everything is good because it gives you perspective to either reaffirm the fact that you're doing something right or say, that person's right. I'm doing something wrong. Get to the relationship. This was my favorite light bulb moment of all. Don't worry about selling your business. Don't worry about selling yourself to others. Get into the relationship first. And once you're into the relationship, everything else is very easy. Conversion, new clients, new businesses, sales of your product has nothing to do with anything until you have that relationship. Be very patient in your business and follow the mom protocol that Doug succinctly told us about today. So we'll see everyone next week for another positive day of illuminating thoughts and light bulb moments. Doug, it's been a blast, man. Hopefully you enjoyed this.
Phil, I loved it. It's great to see you in the interview seat. So thank you for bringing your wisdom to the podcast stage.
I just don't know what took me so long. All right, man. Thanks. See you, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to Light Bulb Moments. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us out. Don't forget to check the show notes for important links and contact information, or visit lbmpodcast.com. Until next time, keep embracing those light bulb moments.